When you are out to become disenchanted, you want a role model for what enchanting looks like, right? Well, I can't wait to introduce you to Clementine Moss of Zepparella. She's the founder and drummer for an all girl tribute band to Led Zeppelin. She's a spiritual counselor, minister, author, singer, songwriter, and healer. Welcome, Clementine.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Laura.
So, you are a gal that when I read your bio, I thought this is the chick that I think most of us want to be. You're creative in so many ways, and you seem to be living life on your terms. And there's so much to talk about, but let's start with Zepparella. Can you tell me how that got started and what you're doing now?
Yeah. Well, let's see. So I'm the drummer for the band, and I started the band about 20 years ago. Um, yeah, I was really in love with John Bonham's drumming, and I wanted to, much the way that a new painter tries to, imitate some of the masters. I kind of felt that way. Like I wanted to understand what made him so magical. And pretty soon after trying to learn his songs, I thought, well, if I'm going to do this, I might as well do that on stage, right?
Ah,
So that's kind of how the band all came together, and we play all over the United States and Canada, and yeah, it's my day job. It's a wonderful day job. Yeah.
that's really cool. So when somebody says or hears about you for the first time, so, they know about Led Zeppelin and they're just like, oh my God, there's these girls that are playing Led Zeppelin. What is their response to you?
It's funny because Led Zeppelin's music is so important to people. They've listened to it at some of the pinnacle times of their lives. People tell us that, their baby was born to Led Zeppelin, or they walked down the aisle to Led Zeppelin's music. It's really powerful music. And so, I would hope that when they hear that I'm doing that, they understand that I really take that into consideration and try to give it my all. I'll never be John Bonham. He was a maestro on the instrument, but what I try to do is my best, and I try to put everything that I can into every show. I love the way that the music connects to people, and I really focus on that connection when I'm playing and hope that people can hear the passion that I have for the music, the love that I have for the music, and the belief that I have that music really does connect us all.
Yeah.
And, our audiences are made up of people from every walk of life, every age group, every side of the aisle, and it all connects. We all connect in that 2 hour set through music. And I think that's a really magical thing.
Yeah. What must be working? You've been doing it for 20 years.
Something's working. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, your book, From Bonham to Buddha and Back, The Slow Enlightenment of the Hard Rock Drummer, is a memoir. It's also a metaphor for your contemplative practice. And I'm often hit with how anything can be that gardening, a pilgrimage, a relationship, if you mindfully pay attention. Can you share what leapt out at you to make you say this needs to go in a book?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. So I started writing the book as a blog, as pieces when I would come back from the weekend, and I would have had, my weekend of shows is, for instance, this week I'm playing in Portland, Oregon, Seattle, and above Seattle, and I live in San Francisco. So on Wednesday, I'll drive all of the equipment up there and pick up the girls from the airport on Thursday, and then we'll drive and play and load all of the equipment every night. And then Sunday I'll drive all of the stuff back. So it's kind of 24/7 job, right? I'm working really hard. I'm encountering a lot of people. I'm doing all of that heavy lifting, and then I'm on stage connecting and trying to connect to this bigger thing that we're all there to do, which was connect through music. So, and then I come back and I'm in San Francisco and I'm sitting in meditation, And it's funny to think about how my meditation practice translates into my weekend of shows. And I started really seeing that behind the drum kit and noticing that that my meditation practice was I was learning kind of the same lessons in a way. I was learning how to see things rise up within me and to give it space, but not give it that much attention, right? It's the same as when I'm playing a show and I'm kind of in the moment of letting the music flow through me, and suddenly somebody walks, on the side of the stage, and I think, what are they doing there? How did they get there? Oh, look, they've come to the show. And suddenly I'm completely taken out of the moment, right? It's the same in meditation where, we're sitting there, we're concentrating on our breath or however it is that we're concentrating. And suddenly we realize that for the past 5 minutes, we've been in last week in that argument that we had with somebody else, right? So I started to see so many parallels between my spiritual life and my rock and roll life, and that it's one life, it's all one
Yeah.
thing. The lessons are, translate into the same. And I thought it would be helpful for people to recognize that the value of spiritual practice, of contemplative practice, and really devoting yourself to that is that when we go out into the world, whether we're in the rock and roll world or in the business world or just raising our families, that suddenly we start to notice that those reactivities that cause us a lot of drama and problems in our life, they start to even out, they start to mellow out a little bit. Our time between our reactions starts to slow down. We start to become more compassionate with ourselves, and thus the compassion kind of feeds into our relationships in our lives. all of those all of those things that we're learning on the mat, it's not like we sit in meditation and then we get up and we completely forget it and it goes away. When we walk around, it's over time, it really does start to temper our life to be able to be very present in what we're doing. Yeah.
And what I'm sensing as well is that I think a lot of people have these preconceived ideas about what it is to have a mindful life. It's supposed to look like this, and I'm supposed to be very calm and cool all the time, and nothing ever gets to me. But what I'm hearing you say in reality, which I think is really fun, is that you can do anything. You could be a rock drummer and still have that as your background.
That's right. That's right. And I think it's really helpful to know that, right? That it really doesn't matter. I mean, what we're doing, I think, on the mat, I think that we get wrapped up into this idea of, improving the self, right?
Yeah.
We're really going to work hard to be the best person that I am, right? And so I'm going to sit and I'm going to do this meditation thing because people say that I'm supposed to do it, right? That it's a big part of people's lives. And we kind of lose the point of it. And I think the point is to be able to be in the world with an open heart. And we do that, the way that kind of translates through the years of meditation or those 10 minutes a day is that we learn compassion for ourselves. We're bringing our breath back. We're not like, I can't do this. I can't do this. If you get wrapped up in all of that negative thought, you realize it's not helpful. You're still going to have to sit for 10 minutes in meditation. So why not be kind to yourself? Bring your thoughts back. Bring your thoughts back when they stray. And in that, we start to learn this kind of bigger compassion, this bigger awareness that really lives within us. And when we're compassionate to ourselves, it can't help but start to be compassionate to other people. I have this monkey mind within me. I have all this crazy stuff going on within me. And when I look out into the world and I see people behaving badly, I think how much they must be suffering, because I understand the suffering that is with me when I sit quietly and just have me to observe. I notice how much suffering it is. I'm allowing it to rise. I'm allowing myself to feel the heaviness, the trauma, just the frustration and the self frustration, the self hatred, the negative thoughts, all of those things in me. And when you really let yourself spend that time every day sitting in that and really start to understand what it's like to sit in all of that stuff, you can't help but start to feel very compassionate for yourself for going through that, and it reflects out in the way we meet the world. And I really am a big believer that um, that it's only through that kind of compassion and open-heartedness that we solve our problems. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah. So you graduated with a degree in creative writing and then didn't become a drummer until later. And I think there's a lot of people who think, well, the ship has sailed. It's too late for me. Can you tell me how that shift happened?
Yeah, that I feel, if I could say that, I feel like I'm a very lucky person. I was born with a family who loved me and, in a good school district and, all of the stuff that, makes for my own particular privilege in this world. But if I could really nail down the thing that I'm most grateful for, it's just having a very childish idea of life, in the sense that I never felt like I had to do anything. Uh, like nothing was scripted out for me, and that I got to just kind of go where my interests and passions lie. And so when I was 27 years old and took a drum lesson and had the thought, I know, maybe it would be a good idea for me to be a musician, because then I could like travel when I work and I could be in community, and writing wasn't really happening for me at the time. And so I had that very like kind of innocent childish idea, like, okay, how about if I just do this? So it helped that when I started playing drums I had a real affinity for it, and pretty soon it was kind of like what I was really passionate about. So um, lucky for me, I live in a time and a place where I get to follow my passions. And I think everybody gets to do that. And I think it's really helpful to look at all of the ways that we tell ourselves that's not possible and try to break through those things. I think makes for a more fulfilled life, I would think.
Well, I'm glad I asked that question because two things. One, I think having that childlike view of the world and the innocence, like, I could do that. I think that's how we do things. You have to have that.
Yeah.
And the other thing, I realized that you didn't start until 27, but I didn't realize that you didn't have your first lesson ever
Yeah.
until 27. That is really amazing. I'm so impressed. I guess determination and passion will goes a long way.
Yeah, I know. I just think that if you really love something, like why not just see how far it'll take you? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're wildly creative. You're a singer, songwriter, drummer, minister, and healer. And now I can see how all of those things could be true.
Mhm.
And I know everyone listening wants to know, how did you just make the leap of trust to support yourself as an artist? Because I think it's a very different thing to be like, oh, I can do that. And I can do that for money.
Yeah.
Love the vibe? Join the tribe. It's free, and the link is in the show notes. See you there.
Yeah, boy, that was a big one for me. I had moments where I was, just, scraping by. And when I say I make a living, I make it. I make it. You have to be okay to make a tiny living, right? um, but but yeah, it was. When I graduated from college, I had this really, again, very innocent idea that I never wanted to have a permanent job, right? I always wanted to be a temp or work in restaurants or something that I could leave very easily and really devote to creativity. I didn't want anything to take away from my creative output. And I just wanted it to feed it financially, but I didn't want to have to think about it when I left work. Now looking back, I think that was a little silly. I wish that I have so many passions. I'm sure I could have figured out one passion that could have fulfilled me a little more financially than all of those kind of wasted time of in jobs that I really didn't care much about. But I did that for quite a number of years, and then I just kind of made a leap. My husband helped me. I have to say, like, just knowing that I had a partner who, could kind of on those months where things weren't working. I think that's a really great gift to have a partner who's supportive in that way, to help out. But there came a day where I really thought to myself, I'm not like, if I don't completely devote myself at this point, then I don't think I'm going to be well. Like I don't feel healthy to have to keep splitting my time in this only for money. I would rather, live somewhere like I would rather give up a lot of stuff than have to deal with not being able to completely devote myself to this. And so I really did make that jump, really for my mental health at that point. I was just tired of feeling like I had to do stuff just for money. And I had to give that up.
Yeah, I love that answer because I think that I hate to say anything about anybody's values, value whatever you want, but I think we can place too much emphasis on money, and a meaningful life is not really all about that. I mean, we do have to support ourselves, but I think at the end of the road, we all want to have a meaningful life, and I think we can only do that by doing what we have to do.
Yeah, yeah. And, I really did it's funny because sometimes I look back at my young self and I think, gosh, I guess I took a vow of poverty, in a way, because, I've never owned anything. I think the only vehicle I've ever owned is the band van, right? So, no home or anything like that. But I get to wake up every day and decide where I want my creativity to take me. And that was the most important thing in my
Yeah.
life.
Well,
Yeah.
and I think that's not a bad thing. I mean, at the end of the day, we come in with nothing, we leave with nothing. So
Yeah.
I don't know, how important is it to own things?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think everybody has their own feeling of safety, their own
Sure.
feeling
Yeah.
of being protected, and again, like I was born in a very comfortable middle class family, and so I don't have some of those that heavy feeling of lack,
Yeah.
that a lot of people have. So, everybody has their own path. And my life, certainly, I wouldn't suggest it for everybody. It just happens to be mine. Yeah.
So, in your new album, Nothing Will Keep Us Apart, love is the theme. And I know it's a favorite topic. I think most of the songs are about love. But what made you inspired to create an album around this?
Yeah. Well, so in the past year and a half, I wrote two albums. And the first one I wrote with a guitarist, um, and after that album was completed, suddenly all of these other songs started to kind of come forward, and so I just kind of went with it. And I was really into a very stripped down. I started to think about my vocal style and singing, and how singing with a piano seemed to make a lot of sense with my own, where my voice lays. And so I started writing songs for just piano and bass. And so I recorded these 7 songs and really had this idea of it being very stripped down. The percussion is very stripped down. And I had fun with percussion for the first time. They aren't straight, drum tracks for the most part. There are a couple in there, but I really wanted to play with rhythm, percussion, and a very stripped down um, sound so that the words could really come forward. And, the songs that I wanted to write were songs of love, ultimately for the divine. And as I would start to write some of the songs, they were songs about relationship between, me and other people. But then I would realize that ultimately the love that we connect with other people is really reflective of our questioning of our connection to the divine. And I thought that theme was really interesting, as a, spiritual counselor, as somebody who's a minister. I do have a connection with kind of the bigger picture. I don't know. We can call it any word that you want. But the greater consciousness, or God, or the divine, whatever that bigger thing is. But I realized that um, I was really asking to know that I was loved. And um, and so I think that is a big theme in here, and often it's reflective in the songs where I'm speaking to a person, and how that kind of is reflective of that bigger idea. Yeah.
Well, that release happens December 10th. I can't wait to hear it. I'm really intrigued now.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank
But you
you.
must have had doubts, though, especially about something like that, that's so personal and so intimate. Moments where you think, what the heck am I doing here? People aren't going to care about this, or something like that. So, how do you combat that inner critic?
Yeah, I've had a very intense inner critic in my life, and anymore, I just I feel like I'm serving the song.
Mm.
I feel like what I have to do is I have to just, I'm really bad at self promotion. I'm really bad at, I had to Google, like, how do you release a song in 2024? It's been a while since I put music out, and things have changed. And, I don't know how to do any of it. So I just thought, I just have to do everything I can to bring this music to the world. And then just have to let it go and let it do what it's going to do. Um, and continue to create. And so, I have other things that I'm working on right now. And so now these songs, it's like I kind of gift them to the world, and people can do with it what they will. And and I love them. So, I just have to do it with love, and I don't know what else to do.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't. People are always the thing that I don't understand the most, I think. So I can't anticipate anybody's reaction to anything, I guess.
Well, so there's the self critic, and then there are, as you're saying, other people's reactions. There are judgments that come from other people, whether that's your mom, your next door neighbor, your boss. That I think takes another level of balls than just dealing with your own self doubt. So you must have, I mean, there's got to have been some negative reviews. Is that the same? Do you not read them, or how do you deal with that?
Yeah, yeah, I love that question. Well, actually, there's a piece in my book about this, about reading YouTube comments, right?
Yeah, people can be
So
brutal.
I know. Well, Zepparella has a video. I think it has 25 million views on it now, and for the first 10 years or so, I never read any of the comments, right?
I'd be the same. I'd totally be the same.
Yeah, yeah, and there's like 20,000 comments, right? And one day I thought, that's kind of silly. Like, what could anybody, I mean, having dealt with a negative internal voice
Mm.
and really let go of that, what could anybody say to me that was worse than what I've said to myself? Like, what could it possibly be? And And so as I read through like 400 or so of them, and and it was true. There was nothing in there that got even a rise. Even somebody
Mhm.
saying, "Oh, she's gained a bunch of weight since which is like, the weight thing, the body image thing had always been like this big thing for me." And even that, I was like, well, like, okay. Like, okay, like, yeah, I'm 10 years older. Like, what do you want? Right? That kind of thing. So I realized I just didn't have it in me anymore to care. And a lot of the negative stuff I could really see people as, like I felt kind of bad for them. Like, wow, like you would take that time to reach out and say negative stuff about, like, really, that's what you're going to spend your time at. Like, I felt bad, that was how they were spending their time. So, yeah, compassion is the way. And I think, and, yeah, I mean, I think that, yeah, anything negative that anybody could say about me, I think I've said it a million times more harshly to myself. So I just don't listen anymore, I guess. Yeah.
Cool. Well, we've been talking about spirituality as an underlying theme the entire time. And I think that if you have your spirituality along for the ride, no matter what you do, you have a much better chance of being happier. Um, so, did you have any particular spiritual teachers or any lessons that are meaningful to you?
Yeah. Well, I started out, reading a lot of Zen, right, in my late teens, early 20s, and did some practice. And then I went to my first 10-day meditation retreat, which was Vipassana meditation, which is insight in meditation. And I've been to several of those 10-day retreats, and that really it has been the practice that has gifted me the most insight, and has been a regular practice for all of this time. And then along the way, I've just been a big seeker. So I've read a lot of different kinds of, spiritual teachers, Ramana Maharshi and Neem Karoli Baba, really loving stories of their practice and the non-duality, all of the non-duality stuff. I've learned a lot about Tibetan Buddhism and have done several of those practices in the past years, as I've become a depth hypnosis practitioner, which depth hypnosis is created by a teacher in Berkeley, California, named Isaguchi Arty, and she combines shamanism, traditional shamanic method, Western spirituality, and or Western psychology, and to Buddhism, especially Tibetan Buddhism, because Tibetan Buddhism has a really clear line to the shamanic tradition of Tibet, the Bun tradition. And so in that, I've learned quite a bit about that. And I think Buddhism has been a real foundation for me through the Vipassana. I've never seen myself as a Buddhist, but I guess that's probably one of the bigger influences in me. I've had a spiritual mentor since I was in my early 20s, who teaches a kind of healing and like energetic healing modality that she created. And her name is Saria Dean. She's in New York. And in the past few years, I felt like I wanted a new kind of something to shake up my meditation teaching, and so I started taking mantra meditation lessons with a teacher named Ishtar. And he lives in Portugal, but he's from the United States. And actually, I spent the day with him yesterday. He was doing a workshop in Berkeley at the Open Circle, and he teaches a kind of meditation. I'm blanking on the name of it, but I took kind of private lessons with him. I went to India last year with him for 3 weeks. He was teaching a meditation course, teacher training. And I wasn't doing the teacher training, but I was kind of went and sat in meditation for 3 weeks there with him. So, and that was really interesting to have this new kind of meditation, mantra meditation sort of enlivened my inner world a little bit, which was really interesting. So, I would say, Buddhism, shamanism, um, and, and these other things have really contributed to my practice.
You mentioned shamanism. Does the drum feature in that practice?
It does. Yeah. When I went to my first shamanic class to learn the shamanic journey, and the drum came out, like light bulbs went on in my head. I'm like, oh, I think I'm supposed to be here. The drum is used to create, a connection to a non-ordinary reality through the trance. The repetitive sound of a drum enables us to access that inner world that we fight against seeing a lot of the time. So it's been used for, I think, almost 80,000 years, the shamanic drum. So it's a powerful tool that humanity has to access the non-ordinary states of the world. Yeah.
I think when people imagine that, they see men, and you just have to look at the walls of the Egyptian temples to know that the musicians were women, the
I'm
drummers
so
were women.
I'm so happy you said that. There's a wonderful book called When the
Mm.
Drummers Were Women. Have you read it?
Yes, I have.
Isn't it great? Oh
Yes.
my gosh, it's amazing. Yeah, it's
So,
amazing.
why do you think women aren't really on the scene today?
Well, I mean, in that book, it really talks about how when the Roman Catholic Church came in, they outlawed the drum in a lot of ways, and that meant they outlawed, female spirituality, and that's hung on with us. And we see, I think it really has to do with how we see power, right? Like in a patriarchy, power is this external force, right? It's this very like outward, we think of power over things. But power, the feminine power, right? Not to be too divisive here, but like that internal personal power, we know is much stronger, right? And uh, so I think that drumming is kind of a great metaphor for that, right? Because there's this idea that the power in drumming is, and this is where John Bonham, it all comes back to John Bonham. We see the external force of drumming as very masculine, right? But the true power is that subtle connection to time between the notes that makes us feel something. And that is why John Bonham is the greatest drummer, because he had this magical connection to the subtlety of the feel of the stuff. That's why when you listen to a Led Zeppelin song, it feels like it does. And I think that kind of internal subtle power is much stronger than the external force.
So I'm
Pretty philosophy,
wondering,
a lot of philosophy there, but
I'm following the metaphor, and I'm wondering if playing rock and roll on stage for an audience, if that's the masculine, would playing a frame drum or a hand drum to connect with spirit be the feminine? Does it feel that way?
well, I guess not so much for me since I do both,
Hmm.
right? I think when I started playing drums, I had the sense that I could be fueled. And for a while, I was in a band where I was fueled by rage, right? Fueled by anger, fueled by passion, that kind of passion. Now I'm fueled by joy. And I'm probably a stronger player now, because of that, because that's a freedom of expression. When I'm fueled by rage, it's like it takes so much effort to get up that energy to do it. I don't think it's as powerful and strong as when you're playing with complete freedom and power that way. So, and that feels, for me, I mean, that is the ultimate expression of the union between the male and the female. And the frame drum, I think, used in order to assist people to take a journey to be able to combat the negativity and, find freedom in it. I don't think that's, I think again, that's the marriage of the male and female. That's the connection to the internal female, that internal power, while also not being afraid to really confront the negativity that we meet sometimes in that. So I guess maybe the perfection is the marriage between the male and female.
Cool. So I know you offer sound and energy healing, which sounds like the perfect segue from everything else that you do. How did you stumble upon that?
It's a part of the depth hypnosis.
Oh,
Depth hypnosis is a beautiful modality where we're using traditional shamanic methods like, regressions or soul power retrieval, soul retrievals. And in that is the drum and sound and a lot of healing. And in that healing and the connection, the thing I really love about depth hypnosis is I'm working shamanically, but I'm allowing the client to be their own shaman. I'm holding space for them to do their own power retrievals, their own connection to their own guides. I'm not working traditionally so much where I'm doing all the journey, I'm doing all the work, I'm the one who knows, which is why I really loved this modality, because, Clem's figuring her own stuff out, right? So in order for me to work, I connect to that bigger thing, the bigger knowledge, that bigger awareness, and I assist people in finding that for themselves. So it's a very empowering modality, and it helps people release trauma, it's good for things like PTSD or depression. Like I said, it really does empower people. And so the sound healing came in there, really from the guides, offering what's necessary for people to be able to heal. Yeah.
and what other type of rituals do you offer?
Well, when I became a minister, I was trained in creating ritual for different transitions people are going through in life, and, marriage and, those kind of things. I haven't done a lot of that, but I really do love working with people to understand the transitions that they're going through in life. Yeah.
So I love your path. And I think we all want to be our own unique version of humanity. I think we all have it within us to be creative in some way and to connect with others and to spirit. And I'm inspired by your story. Thanks so much for sharing it with us.
Laura, thank you so much. And thank you for the great questions. I
Oh,
really
yeah. And thanks everybody for listening. Be sure to check out Clem's book. She's a beautiful writer. And don't forget that the new album, December 10th, and the links for that are in the show notes. And give us a like or review if you enjoyed the conversation. Thanks for being here.
Make sure to subscribe to the show on iTunes or Spotify so you'll never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, why not show your love with a review? Thanks. See you next week.